Yeah, a lot of people.
I saw him at the house. He was looking for this. Yeah, he was in the yeah, he said, "I got
I know, I'm hot now. How about the special here? You don't listen. So I'm just doing my own. Were you activated?
There's
don't know
a
our house.
there's a list of houses just came out already.
Only paradise. That was my question.
Oh,
Where's our
it
list for
says-
Magalia? Yeah.
I didn't think it was
I
small.
get it. Paradise is easy to pronounce. Magalia is difficult. Yeah. I think so too. I don't think it's right. I have to say this. That's exactly what I thought until the list was released. And there was no Magalia. I don't think they've gotten that far. Really? Yeah. They haven't. So we're here. We've got several friends. Obviously, we all do. We're actually we're like this above the last fire line that they show. So we're at the south, just south. Yeah. But my mom is on Chestnut, and our friends are on Country Club Lane. She did. Yeah.
She said some of them, depending on the situation, would actually
Wow, that would be amazing to know. I know they're using the ArcGIS, which can be very finite. So I looked our address up on that, and it still looks good. And one of our neighbors is one of the guys that's camping at DeSable Lake.
Hey, Kevin.
So he said last he saw it staying there. But for how long? You know, I guess it depends on the winds.
yeah, it's
Yeah. On the Bear Creek side. Yeah. And there's still a big flume at, we just came back in on 32, and there's just a big flume on Forest Hill. So Forest Hill, there's an active flume. Where are you guys? Yeah.
and she was right around
You know, I have to tell you, yeah, my mom's here. We've got a picture. It's the way to go.
We got a picture of it now. A friend of ours was coming up against her parents. So my dad and she went and said, I'll do what I can to get someone in there.
Right.
We walked to see the hey, you see our house is still standing there. The drug house at the end of the street.
Oh, no.
And my dad texted back and said, it's next to this thing.
Yeah.
And it was good because it was
Right. Yeah. That's where my mom is.
I got my house on a video.
Yes. Yeah, we've been Rick Silva. Yeah.
And I saw
Uh-huh.
but it was
Right. It was the,
you could see them.
yeah.
Because we had two houses. And so you could see it wasn't enough to you could see my
Where you could make it out. Right.
and so they were still
Yeah.
and when they said over there break it was on TV. I gave them the information. My parents were saying they showed us that
Yeah.
they videoed him.
Thank you all for coming tonight and being a part of this. I'm waiting. There we go. I'm on. Ready? Yeah. We want to thank you all for coming and being a part of this special time tonight. We know you all have many questions and different things that you will be responding to and considering in this process. There's no rush in this, but we have a very important time to start, and we're going to start it with prayer. We're going to ask God to be a part of this with us, because the ridge that may not be the ridge as we knew it is a place where God can still participate with us. And we have a leadership team that is going to be ready to take the next steps. So let's pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, who with incredible love designed us and cared for us from the very beginning. You know about Paradise and you understand every detail of the things that have gone on in the last couple days. We've lost so much. We've seen so many things change. But we also know that you understand that and you care about us. And today, as we begin a new chapter, we pray that you will begin turning the pages, those blank pages, filling them up with good things that are going to be honorable and pleasant and joyful. I pray, God, you'll be the restorer through us, helping us to make great choices for the future. And I thank you for blessing this time with us here in Laxton, and you will allow this time to be honorable and good. We thank you for joining us and blessing us in this process as we step ahead into the future together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm Jody Jones, Mayor of Paradise. We're here today to update you on the status of Camp Fire. We understand that you're scared, you're tired, and you want answers. And my hope for today is that you receive answers to your questions and you have more clarity on what the future might hold. On behalf of the town, I would like to thank our partners at the county, the state, and the federal level for their continued support throughout this disaster. I'd also like to thank all of you for your patience, as well as your continued efforts to support each other. As the thousands of firefighters and emergency responders continue to battle the Camp Fire, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that they are now part of our community. Our hearts go with them, and they will always be a part of our community. We're incredibly grateful. My heart goes out to each and every one of you, every person affected by this disaster. I know that many of our emergency response personnel and their loved ones have lost their homes, and yet you are still showing up to bravely serve our community. Thank you. Most importantly, we want to let residents know that we're here for you in these coming days and always. I had someone say to me today, "What are you the mayor of? Ashes?" And I said, no, we still have our people. And ashes were not made in the image of God. All of you were. We're working together and we'll be prepared to tackle this recovery with each and every one of you. Together we are Paradise Strong. I know that my remarks were very general, but you're going to hear a lot more specifics from the people to come after me. Thank you for coming tonight.
I'm Lauren Gale, Town Manager for Paradise. As the mayor just mentioned, we have a lineup of the people that you want to hear from. We have law enforcement, we have fire, we have the school district, PID, PG&E, hospitals, we have everyone here. Now, we also will have a question and answer period where we'll read some of the questions. We won't have time for all of them. We did sort through so we don't have a lot of duplicates. But if we don't get to all of your questions, please know that after this meeting, we're going to be out front, each and every one of us, all the experts, we're going to be talking to you and answering your questions, and hopefully everyone will leave here and at least know a lot more, if not feel a lot better. But again, I apologize for the lack of information that's been out there initially. But we have been feeding the news stations with all of our information. Normally, we put it on our website, on our Facebook page. Well, communications were down. We didn't have our website. We don't have our communication. Plus, all of our emergency and public safety workers in town, most of them have lost their homes. Most, if not all, as with the entire council has. So we're all in the same boat here. And we are working as fast as we can, as hard as we can to get the information that you need to you. And so what we are doing is using social media. We're going to push out a lot of information on the town's Facebook page, and you can share it with your friends and get the word out. But remember, we always do a press release to the press. The local news stations have been fabulous. I've been watching and monitoring the local news, and they have been getting the news out to you, the news that we give, and we want you to know. So when we talk about repopulation, when the sheriff will address a little bit why some of the sensitivities of why we can't just go charging in there right now. But when you can get in your homes, we'll put it on our Facebook page, and we'll put it on our local news stations, and you will be able to get that information. We'll also put it on our town website when we get that up and running in the next couple of days. If you haven't heard, the town is locating its offices temporarily in the old municipal building in Chico. It's a beautiful building. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pry my employees back out and we're ready to go back out to Paradise. I want you to know that as soon as we possibly can, whether it takes a month or 3 months, we're going to be back into the good old town hall, and we will be there serving our residents, those that have physical homes there and those that do not. We are there to serve you, and we always will be. Like the mayor and the council says, the council is very strong and very determined that we, first of all, spend the appropriate amount of time recovering from this disaster, helping our residents recover from this disaster, getting over this tragedy, which is, I mean, it's new for all of us. But once we do that, we will be here to help our residents and our community come back even stronger and better. And that will be a long process. So this, at first, I just want to make sure that we're very sensitive and respectful to those have not only have lost their business and their homes, but the lives that have been lost is going to be tremendous. I've always said that that wasn't going to happen on my watch. So, I also want you to know that we're making a lot of progress in removing the hazards so people can get into their properties. I've heard tractors and snowplows and everything that we have, getting that debris out of the way. PG&E has been an amazing partner, getting those power lines back up. I don't know if you've seen the news, but just about every single solitary power line in town and telephone line is burned to the ground. They're all down, they're all over the place. PG&E has gone through the day after the fire, when there was still a lot of active fire burning, and trying to get those hazardous lines out of the way so people can, the emergency workers, the firefighters can get through and fight that fire. So we thank our partners. And I also wanted to thank Laxon Auditorium, Chico State University, for letting us use this wonderful facility at the last minute. So normally putting together a production takes a long time, right? It takes months to put on a nice production. This took like about a few hours, but they did it. They helped us pull this off. So let's see what else I wanted to say about repopulation. Now, again, there's a long process with removing the hazardous ash. It's a toxic material. We can't just go in there and get it. We will at some point be able to take people in by maybe zones or neighborhoods to either go through their property property a little bit lightly. We'll give you the proper protection to do that, or at least go in and check your home. Please know that, and the police chief will talk about this later, we are patrolling the neighborhoods a lot. But as far as repopulation, we don't know the exact date, but there is an environmental process of cleaning up the ash. We can't just go in there and scoop it up and put it in the garbage. So if you have a home and still standing, it might be 1 to 3 months before you can get back into your home. Again, I don't know the exact time. We're working as fast as possible, but I wanted to give people an idea without leaving you in the dark too much, because I know most of you have to make arrangements, living arrangements. Also, well, we all do, right? Every single one of us does. But if your home has burned, it's going to be a very long process for rebuilding. I mean, it's going to be 1 to 3 years before you get in there and get your home and settled and what you want and rebuild and all of that. So it is going to be a long time. So please be patient, not only with us, with the emergency workers as well. We still have an active fire. CAL FIRE's pulling in so many resources, but there's still an active fire. There's still a lot of winds up there on the hill, on Jarbo Gap tonight. The big winds are expected tonight, so there's still a lot going on. So you can see that we're doing a pretty bang-up job over at the IC. CAL FIRE is to help us in that respect. We have disaster grief counselors and chaplains on hand to help with people who want to speak. Behavioral Health has an access line, 891-2810 for grief counseling. Please reach out and call someone. If you want to call someone, talk to a chaplain, please use that resource. So initially, I put out some information on the town's Facebook page for initial damage reports. That wasn't the whole town, that was a portion of the town. I might have jumped the gun on that a little too soon. The data is very raw, and we do need to have a more coordinated effort of getting that information out there, but we will try to get that out to you as soon as we have it. I know that there is a map coming out maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, that you can click on and look and see. And CAL FIRE is working on that. I have an expert who will tell you all about that process. We are coordinating with CAL FIRE and the sheriff to determine when it is safe to return. First, we have to lift the evacuation orders, and that has not been lifted yet. So in that regard, I am going to sit down and let the experts come up and speak. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Josh Bischoff. I'm a battalion chief for CAL FIRE in the Riverside unit. I have the honor and privilege to serve CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 4 as one of the operations section chiefs. First and foremost, I want to give my deepest sympathy and to all those of you who have lost things, houses, friends. We are very sorry for your loss. I will assure you that we are doing everything we can to try and control this fire and help you get back in your community as soon as possible. For an operational update, as you may know, since last night, we have been predicting red flag warnings with high winds similar to the first day of the fire. We did experience fire growth overnight, and we have continued to experience fire growth today that I'll talk about in a moment. Starting at the heel of the fire, up on the 70 corridor, in the Big Bar area, the fire did spread across the Feather River drainage, and we currently have about 2,000 acres slopped over the Feather River drainage, moving up towards the ridge of the ridge above it. In the Big Bend area, the fire continued to progress through the Big Bend area towards the south. We had a slop over this evening. It spotted across the river over to the Bloomer Hill area. Currently, that spot fire is about 80 acres, and we are working before dark with fixed wing aircraft and rotary wing aircraft, and we are getting dozers in there to help control that spot fire and the spread of that fire into the Berry Creek and Bush Creek area. That'd be the concern for that. Additionally, we did receive another spot fire across to the Goat Point. That fire is currently spreading about 500 to 700 acres towards the area of Cherokee. We have crews in there tonight, engine crews, dozers, trying to work off of those roads and provide barriers prior to it getting to the Cherokee and controlling the spread. We are experiencing high winds in that area. Down along the 99 corridor, we didn't have any fire spread today. We were able to do a lot of work in there, make sure we're mopping up and patrolling, getting any hot spots. Up in the actual area in the town of Paradise, we had another very successful day. There was a lot of hazards, hot spots, trees, and we had a day of a lot of work up there trying to mitigate all those hazards, both fire hazards and assisting with the utility companies to try and mitigate some of those hazards as well. Moving around up the 32 corridor, we made a lot of progress. The wind was in our favor in the 32 corridor. We were able to fly rotary wing aircraft. The Santos Ranch area, it's some very steep, rugged terrain between Santos Ranch and Magalia, and we were able to make good progress in there. However, I will tell you there's a lot of work to be done in that area. That's some very difficult, as you know, very difficult, steep, rugged terrain that is difficult to fight fire in. We have a lot of resources, bulldozers, hand crews, and we have been receiving support from the rotary wing aircraft. Up in the southern part of Magalia, we did not experience any spread into Magalia tonight and today. We've been able to get a lot of resources in there and hold that area in check. After you go up Magalia, the lake in Magalia and go up onto the ridge above it, we have experienced some spread to the north in the direction of Sterling City. We have retardant from our fixed wing aircraft that have been up there. We've been able to today get rotary wing aircraft in there to try and keep that in check. And as we move across the north part of the fire, headed back down towards the 70 corridor, the middle part there in a lot of the timberland, we were able to get in there with the fixed wing aircraft, drop retardant, and currently those lines are holding, however they are moving slow. Down into the area, the Dixie Road, back down to 70, we were able to, for the most part, hold that with a few slopovers that we've been able to pick up with the rotary wing aircraft. We did have more success with our aircraft today, and I will tell you that we have planned for tomorrow, we're going to have a mobile retardant plant, so we'll be able to deliver retardant both from the helicopters and from the fixed wing aircraft. Our goal is to try and stop the spread of any of these areas that are still burning and try and reduce any more loss. It is still an active firefight, and we are still working very hard to try and control the spread of the fire. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Hawks. I'm a North Division Chief for CAL FIRE Butte County and the Paradise Fire Chief. I just want to paint the picture about the firefighting conditions that we faced on Thursday morning. The campfire started down near Polga, the community of Polga, which for those of you that are familiar with the Highway 70 drainage, very, very steep, rugged, a lot of fire history. And I want to back up by saying that fire behavior is driven by three primary factors. Weather, of which by far the most dominant is wind. Secondly, fuels, and we've talked about fuel conditions. In this general area, it's been 200 and some days since we've seen any appreciable rain. So our fuel conditions are setting record levels for November. Typically this time of year, as you know, we've had a couple of at least moderate storms to dampen the fine fuels and start to temper the fire season. We haven't even come close to that yet, obviously. And then the third component is topography. Obviously, the topography and the hillsides, the slope is the most dominant factor in topography, and also driven by chutes and chimneys and saddles and those kinds of things. So what we had on Thursday morning is an alignment of the most critical elements of those three things. The fuel at its absolute driest, the wind at its arguably typical peak conditions for a northeast wind event in California, Northern California, and then also the topography of the Feather River drainage. This same fire has burned many times, but it has never spotted across into the community of Paradise, fortunately, until the other day, unfortunately. So some of the things I want to talk about, the fire was reported roughly around 6:30 a.m. By about 7:30, it had burned 3.6 miles and was just at the north end of Concow Lake in an hour's time frame. From there, it burned another 3.1 miles for a total of 6.7 miles to the point it spotted across the west branch of the Feather River, with the first known spot fire along the area of Merrill Road, several spot fires. And the fire was estimated at about 2,000 acres an hour and a half into it. So to put that in perspective, that is about 1 1/3 football fields a minute. And on flat terrain, you can imagine what walking a football field on just one football field would do, but then you put that in perspective over whatever amounts to 6.7 miles of football fields. The fire was moving what we call at a dangerous to rapid rate of spread. One other thing I want to point out is fire doesn't move in continuous rates of spread at the same amount or same rate across the landscape. It varies. So at times it will accelerate to well over 3 miles an hour, and that's exactly what occurred here. At other times it would be in the 1 to 3 mile range, which we refer to as a dangerous rate of spread. So as the fire established itself across into the community of Paradise, we also I mentioned the fuels. One of the critical fuel components is what we call the fine fuels: grass, pine needles, and leaves. And everybody that lives in Paradise knows we have an abundance of those things, and particularly pine needles. So I can tell you that the embers that were cast off of this fire, driven by a dominant east wind, east-northeast wind, predominantly more to the east side, pushed the fire directly across the drainage, multiple spot fires. So picture if you had 100 matches in your hand and you dropped each of those matches in that fine fuel bed, that pine needle fuel bed that I'm referring to. I would venture to say that close to 100% of those took, certainly well over 90. So the probability of ignition was extremely high. So what we ended up amounting to is we had multiple fires, spot fires, caused along the West Branch, Pence Road side of the town. Those spot fires in turn caused other spot fires. And as a matter of fact, as I drove to the fire shortly after 8:30 a.m., I came upon a spot fire that's roughly 2/3 to 3/4 of a mile interior of town. So that kind of paints the picture as to the number of fires that occurred, multiple spot fires, again, precipitating themselves further into town. And as the fire progressed, the main body of the fire progressed. So from a firefighting perspective, what you have out there is life, property, and natural resources. From a firefighting and law enforcement perspective, our number one goal absolutely is life. So given the population of the town of Paradise, the rapid development of this fire, and the broad impacts across the town, not just in one area, but the broad impacts across the town, our primary focus for at least the first 8 hours of the fire, I would say till close to dark, was almost 100% on rescue. There were many cases where people were sheltered in place, up to several hundred people sheltered in place in temporary refuge areas, and I know many of you were probably among those. So our goal was to move people into more open areas to the extent possible, and then further move those into the interior of town, such as the Kmart parking lot, the CMA church, where people could take temporary refuge, because obviously not only did we have widespread fire through town, but we had down power lines, down utility lines, down poles, some trees were down at that point. So we were dealing with road conditions. PG&E, I might add, was there lockstep with law enforcement and fire throughout this time, as we cleared power lines, opened roads, and moved people into these temporary refuge areas until ultimately, towards the later daylight part of the day, we were able to move what I believe was the rest of the people that were able to get out of town out. So I hope that paints a picture. The fire in that particular day itself, it burned 19.75 miles in a 17-hour period, so greater than 1 mile per hour, certainly a dangerous rate of spread. And as you remember, the Cedar Fire from 2003 in San Diego County, at the time until this year's Ranch Fire in Mendocino County, was the largest fire. That fire burned 30 miles in 15 hours. So this fire burned nearly 20 miles in 17 hours. Very, very similar conditions. And that's all I have. Thank you. And, my wishes go out to all of you. I was born and raised in Paradise, and I want to see Paradise strong and back to where it was before.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nick Wallens. I'm a fire captain with CAL FIRE, and I'm in charge of the damage inspection for the camp incident. I want to first recognize this is the first step in the recovery process, and that's what our team is focused on. Our team is focused on getting this data as fast as we can and getting it delivered to you guys. So just kind of going to highlight what we're doing in the field, how we gather our data, and then how we're going to get that to you. When we first set up this program, our first step is building a team and getting that data gathered. Right now, we've built that team. We have over 30 people in the field. We've been working in Paradise the last couple of days. The only reason for starting in Paradise is the other areas outlying weren't safe to go into. Tomorrow, we're shifting some teams up into Magalia, and then we're going to be shifting into Concal. And as safe to do so, we're going to keep expanding the teams throughout the fire area. And once we finish gathering that data, our next goal, which I've been focusing on today, is working on getting that data to you guys. So first, I'm going to kind of talk about our general process. So as I mentioned, we have almost 30 people in the field. They work in pairs, and we search the entire fire area, starting in a methodical fashion. The teams use handheld devices, either a phone or a tablet. Everything is electronic based. They can gather records almost as fast as they can walk. So they walk up, they'll gather a structure, they input it into the device, they can walk on. In the higher density areas, they're working almost exclusively on foot. And then when we move into the more rural areas, they'll travel by vehicle. Once all of those collections go, once those collections go into the device, they're all pushed up into the cloud, and they all live into the server. And that's where we're able to produce the spreadsheets with the exact addresses, and then more importantly, you can build a web app viewer, which I'll discuss with you in a little bit. What the teams are looking for, our minimum threshold for a structure is 120 square feet in size and permanent. Everything else from that and up, we're gathering, and we'll have a record gathered for it. We start with an undamaged residential home we'll gather, and undamaged commercial structures will also gather. And then we'll show a damaged level from there, and then categorized into either an outbuilding, a residential, or a commercial. So then moving forward with all of this data, as I mentioned, we want to get it out to the people that it's affecting so that you guys can begin that recovery process. What we've worked on, I worked at the car fire, and I also led the damage inspection for that incident. And we're looking forward to releasing a similar process for that incident, which is basically a website where you guys can log in. It'll have a map showing where all the damaged and destroyed, and also the undamaged homes and commercial buildings are located. You can go into a map similar to Google Maps, type in an address, it'll take you to that location, And then the damage, the undamaged level will be shown by a visual icon. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Again, our hearts and thoughts are with you guys. Our teams are working as fast as they can to get this information out to you. We've been working in close collaboration with the town of Paradise and Butte County so that we're all in a coordinated fashion to get this information to you guys as fast as possible and begin that healing process and recovery and move forward from this. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Corey Honey, and I'm the sheriff, corner of Butte County. I'm your sheriff. Down there, I could actually see you. The lights are so bright up here, I can't see you. I know some of you were here last night. We talked a little bit, and I know probably some of you are here for the first time tonight. And I just also want to reiterate, I am just so sorry for everything that you're going through. For those of you who've been displaced from your homes, for those of you who lost your homes, and especially for those of you who have lost friends and loved ones. And I'm going to talk with you a little bit about that because as a coroner, that's part of my duties. So I want to talk first a little bit about the missing persons aspect of what we're doing. I'll begin by telling you that Chief Reinbold and I are working extraordinarily close together from a law enforcement perspective or from an investigative perspective in terms of dealing with missing persons cases. He and I are in unified command. We speak frequently throughout the day, and when necessary, we're coordinating our resources and making sure that we're on the same page. And I got to tell you, he's been an incredible partner. You were lucky to have him as a chief of police, and I'm glad to have him as my partner. I will also tell you that you have a fantastic police department, and they're battered and bruised, like you guys are. But I've had an opportunity to go out and meet with them and speak with them and see them in action. I was out there today, and they are out there protecting. They are doing the job. And I'll also tell you, I have an awfully soft spot in my heart for the Paradise Police Department because my daughter Cassidy is a police officer for the town of Paradise. She's only been on the job for about a year, but I'm awfully proud to have her doing that. I'm glad that she's serving her community. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that she's serving her community during this incredibly difficult time. So, I want to begin by putting this in perspective. From what I'm being told, we're dealing with the most devastating fire in the history of California. And I think that we're probably on pace for it to be the deadliest fire in the history of California. There are a lot of people who are missing and unaccounted for, and between Chief Reinbold and I, we're working to pick up the investigative piece of that. It makes sense because as the coroner, if those individuals perished in the fire, ultimately it's going to be my responsibility to investigate that circumstance, identify those people, and give the remains back to the family. So as of today, we have established a system whereby people can call in and report a friend or loved one missing. We set up a hotline today with 3 different numbers. Those numbers are 530-538-6570 and 530-538-7544 and 530-538-7671. We know that we have been having people call our our main business line at 530-538-7322. But we only have so many lines and we only have so many dispatchers, and so there's been busy signals and long waiting periods, and that's why we've opened up this hotline, and we're staffing it with people so that hopefully you don't have to wait for very long for someone to answer that. If you believe that you have a friend or loved one who's missing and you haven't been able to reconnect them or recontact them, then I want you to call one of these numbers and report that person missing. I want to start by saying, please do your best to try to connect with that friend or loved one first through whatever channels you have available to you, or by checking the safeandwell.org website. Did I get that right? Is that the right? Did I say that? Safeandwell.org. Safeandwell.org. Check that first. Forgive me guys, I'm a little running, so it's a little hard to remember some of this. So check that first, and if you're unsuccessful, call and make a report. A detective will be assigned to that case, and we'll start working to determine whether or not we can find the individual and hopefully get you back in contact with them. We have had some good success at that so far. Right now, currently, we have 228 cases pending where we haven't yet been able to determine where the person is or connect them with the people who reported them missing. That is down. We received hundreds of calls, and as a result of the investigative efforts of the detectives, we've ultimately be able to reunite or locate 107 people. So we are actually because this process is so arduous, because it's difficult, because it was chaotic to begin with. If you have called and reported someone missing, I would like you to call again and report them through one of those three numbers so that we can check, one, to make sure we have it, two, to check the status of it so that you know what's going on, and three, connect you up with one of our detectives. If you have reported somebody missing, we would like you to also call and report somebody missing, and then you've subsequently found that person, reconnect. Please call those numbers and let us know so that we can close that case and then use the resources we have to go on to other cases that haven't been resolved. We need your help, your cooperation in ultimately doing this. Now let me turn to the really just difficult portion of all of this, and the toughest part of this job, and that is the coroner side of my job. As I said, I think this is on pace to be perhaps one of the deadliest fires, and we know that we're going to be, I know that people have lost friends and loved ones, and we're in the process of going through identifying human remains, recovering those remains, and then going through the process of identifying those people, and then notifying their next of kin so that we can return the remains to their family. I know how hard it is on you, but the magnitude of this is really, really significant. It is something that we have to make sure we're doing correctly. So to that end, I have pulled together 10 coroners search and recovery teams made up of my deputies, who are also deputy coroners and detectives, as well as deputy coroners and coroners investigators from throughout the state. We have been working to go through the town of Paradise, as well as other areas affected by the fire, searching in areas where we have reports of casualties, or areas where we suspect there may be a high likelihood of casualties. When those remains are found, of course, they're collected, and our process at this point is that we are partnering with the Sacramento County Coroner's Office. Those remains are being sent down to the morgue in Sacramento County, where their team of pathologists, forensic specialists are assisting us in determining the cause of death, manner of death, and then ultimately helping us with the identification process. To date, we have recovered 29 human beings, human remains. And I say it that way because not all of them are fully intact bodies. This was a ferocious fire. It burned hot. And in some instances, the bodies that were recovering are badly burned. And in some cases, they are skeletal remains. And I suspect that in some cases, the bodies may have been completely consumed. We are continuing to update through our press releases the number of bodies that we locate, the number of human remains that we locate, and where we locate them generally and in what circumstances, for example, in a home or in a vehicle or outside of a home. We're careful at this point not to specify, for example, that a body was found in a particular home because we don't think it's appropriate for you to hear about the death of a loved one through media release. What our preference would be is to confirm the identity and then make contact with you, which is why it's important that you utilize the missing persons hotline that we have so that we can connect that up. One of the other aspects of that is that our detectives, we have available the DOJ, the California Department of Justice, forensics folks, the DNA folks are embedded with us, and family members may be asked to give a DNA sample to help us ultimately identify the remains. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we identify the remains. And I'm sorry, folks, I know that this is very, very difficult thing to talk about, but I think it's important for you to understand how tough this task is. So, what's that? Oh, sorry. So we use a number of methods to identify human remains. Because most of these folks have been badly burned or consumed by fire, we would look first to whether or not there's the potential for taking fingerprints and comparing fingerprints. If that's not possible, we would look to dental records. If that's not possible, then we would look to DNA, which is where DNA from family members come into play. Finally, if none of those work, we look at the circumstantial evidence to try to make a determination. And what I mean by that is where the person was found. For example, if the person lived alone in a home or they were in a car, we would look at that as a way of trying to determine whether or not that was their home and that's who they are. That process takes time, which is why it may take time for us ultimately to get out there and notify next of kin. It's important that we get this as right as we possibly can, and so I'd ask for your patience in that regard. This is an incredibly tough situation for everybody involved, and again, I'll just say my heart goes out to each and every one of you. You are my people. I'm the sheriff of everybody in Butte County, including the residents of the Ridge, and you know my special connection to your police department. I'm proud to be your sheriff.
We're proud to have you for a sheriff.
I wish that we were doing this. But if we have to go through it, I want to go through it with you. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Eric Reinbold, the Paradise Police Chief. It's very sad to be standing up here in front of all of you. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. I've been affected by this fire as well as many, if not more than half of my employees. However, having said that, even though 17 of my employees have lost their homes, they have showed up for each and every one of their shifts. They've been held on, and none of them have had any time off. They're committed to serving our community, keeping our community safe, and working around the clock, answering calls for service. As many of you has called in and asked to see if your home is still standing, if we know the whereabouts of a friend or family member, And that's primarily been the calls for service that they've been responding to. Having said that, around the clock, we have at least 15, if not 20, officers, deputies, California Highway Patrol, state officers and federal officers patrolling our community. While answering calls for service, they're also looking for suspicious vehicles, contacting people walking in neighborhoods, and standing outside of homes. The homes that are left and people outside of them are typically determined to be the homeowners that are just keeping watch over your, homes that have been left, or the remains of homes that they don't want anyone rifling through and taking anything that may remain. Having said that, we have made some arrests. Yesterday, an El Dorado County deputy noticed a suspicious vehicle and contacted the occupants that were from Oregon and Nevada. And we determined they had no business being in our town, and they both got arrested. One of them had a loaded firearm, and it was obvious that they were up here to try and get advantage of you, and we are doing everything we can to prevent that. So I do want to talk a little bit about the evacuation. HP, probation department, everybody that was at work rushed to the Paradise area to help us with evacuations. Our county partners, Public Works, our town Public Works, everybody pulled together to implement our evacuation plan. Now, of course, this incident was chaotic. We couldn't keep up with it, and it seemed that everybody was evacuating at once. I understand that there's some concerns. What I'm trying to do is explain to you that we did everything we possibly could. Myself and the sheriff were out directing traffic at one point. We were coordinating getting the contraflow down the Skyway in place, and CHP was helping us at the bottom of the hill on 99 getting everybody out. So I want to say that the majority of the citizens were patient and understanding, and I even had folks helping us direct traffic, and we did our best to get everybody out in a timely manner. So currently all of the roads to the town of Paradise are going to remain closed for access of citizens. As the sheriff's discussed, we have a lengthy process in our missing persons cases, as well as working with the utility companies to continue to abate hazards and work on the restoration of utilities and making our town safe for re-entry. I just want to point out a couple of other things. We will still be running our operations center. The Paradise Dispatch will be operating out of the sheriff's office in Oroville, but we are committed to serving the public and coming back and being back in our police department in the town and continuing to serve you. I will be around afterwards for questions, and again, I'm sorry for everyone that's affected by this, and we'll continue to work alongside you to rebuild our town.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Phillips. I'm representing Paradise Irrigation District here tonight. I come tonight with a message from your guys' board of directors that their hearts and prayers are with each and every one of our customers. Every one of our customers is the residents of the town of Paradise. And as you have lost your home, we have lost our irrigation district. So we've come to say, we're not leaving. We're here. We're here to serve you and to serve our community, to get us back into service, into water service going forward. I'm going to handle a few of the operations operational type of things. For customers worried about calling the office to cancel service, there's no need to. We understand. We understand everybody turned off their water, and if it's still running, we're gonna turn it off for you. Just to give you a sense of what we've been accomplishing and where we're going. On Thursday morning, we had 2 treatment operators show up to work like any other day. And as the clock ticked, we knew things were bad in town, but we didn't know how bad. It started burning and burning, and it burnt off all the telemetry of our tanks, of all of the communication back to the treatment plant. And so the treatment plant staff, the 2, never left. They stayed. They stayed until Friday morning, until the fire was burning up into Magalia, before they actually left the treatment plant. They ran the treatment plant at the highest level possible, pushing as much water as they could down into Paradise, hoping that that would save a home, a town, anything. As the fire came through and burnt homes and burnt businesses, those lines just opened up, and all we had was water flowing down the street, and that created some fire suppression issues. We continued on as much as we could to try to help the fire department in town. After all was said and done, the fire department still needed help to get fire into town. So on Sunday we had crews up into Paradise, and we were turning off valves all over town to make sure that we could get water down into Station 81 for the fire department to grab water to help with any type of structure fires that might flare up again. So right now, what we have is we have water service from Wagstaff down to Station 81, down into the town of Paradise. There is no water service connected to any of the other outlying areas of Paradise. Also, we are under a boil water issue. If anybody was to be able to return back into their homes, that the water is not for potable use, and if you do not for potable use, you must follow the directions of water order. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with every one of you. We are here to serve you and to serve this community. And right now, our communication is down in the office. We have no communication. Our office, thank God, is still standing, so we will be returning back to the office when we do get communication in there and when it's safe for us to return. But if anybody needs any information from Paradise Irrigation District, please call my cell phone number. My number is 530-518-6696, and I'll try to get you connected with anybody that can have the proper answer. Again, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Johnson, and I am a Vice President at PG&E in charge of our Community Wildfire Safety Program. I want to start off by just saying that I can't begin to describe how our PG&E family feels about the disaster that has hit this community. You are our customers, our neighbors, and our friends. We know that thousands of homes and businesses have been lost, and then that includes the homes of at least 61 of our own employees who live and work in this community. Our hearts are with all the communities that have been affected by the Camp Fire. We recognize that the loss of property and life is really staggering. Our emergency operations center is open. Our teams are responding to this fire in coordination with first responders and local agencies, helping to clear roadways and remove electrical assets that have been down during this event. I spoke with our incident commander today, and
He's honest that's slow going right now. There's just a tremendous amount of damage to electrical infrastructure. And in many of the lines, when we start cutting out the lines, the poles come down behind them. And so the work is slow going, but we're there doing that. As of this morning, we have approximately 25,000 electrical customers out in the county of Butte for fire impacts. Also for safety, we've shut in gas. That's effectively means we've turned off gas for over 12,000 customers, and that service will remain off until we've had an ability to do a damage assessment of the gas system. We have 800 employees in the area working on this. One of the other primary areas we have is we've brought in a lot of our vegetation management crews to help remove trees that have fallen and are in the area, again, in support of first responders. We've set up a base camp along outside Paradise at the Tuscan Ridge Golf Course. As I said, we have 800 folks in the area, and we have the capability to house up to 1,500 people at that base camp. We are beginning the process of doing a damage assessment. Again, speaking to our incident commander on site, we have been in for about 2 days doing that damage assessment. We are cautiously optimistic that we will be able to complete that damage assessment for the town of Paradise by dusk tomorrow, certainly the day after. Once that is complete and we get the okay from CAL FIRE to begin restoration efforts, once a lot of that clearing is done, we will begin restoring power and gas as quickly as possible, oftentimes on the main lines. And then over the longer term, obviously, we will have to begin the rebuild effort, and that is a much longer endeavor where we need to come in and basically replace the entirety of the infrastructure.
Please do not call out questions. We'll have time for questions and answers. Please be respectful to our speakers.
That is all I have.
Please, before you go, sit down.
Yeah.
Sit down.
Sit down. Sit down.
Sit down.
This is not how we conduct meetings in the town.
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down.
Do we have security, please?
Take him out.
Can we have
Take him out.
security?
Get him out of here.
Ask this person.
Take him out.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
Sit down, sir.
So again, I just wanted to close by saying, obviously, as with the water department, we've obviously ceased all billing operations and will address those matters at the appropriate time. But I will be here and happy to answer your questions when we get to that portion of the section. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Jean, the proud superintendent of Paradise Unified School District. Like all of you, we are heartbroken over what has occurred in our community that we love so deeply. On Tuesday morning, we watched with so much joy as our community stood behind our schools in the election, and we were planning on how to thank and stand beside you. It was the highest of the highs, and Thursday morning was the lowest of the lows. We prepared, as we prepared to evacuate 4,500 students on this ridge and reunite them. I'm sure most of you have seen pictures of our bus on the side of the road that we stopped and literally threw children into cars and another bus that was coming down the road. Our staff never left the sides of their students. We are We were the second largest employer on this ridge with over 400 employees. We spent 48 hours reuniting our children and making sure they had their loved ones. That, to the best of our knowledge, has been accomplished. Now, we are working with the governor and the State Department of Education to assess our schools. As you know, you've seen on TV, as of most of your homes, it is not good news. We have lost Paradise Elementary completely, Ridgeview High School completely, Honey Run Academy completely. There has been significant damage to Ponderosa Elementary. We have lost East 6 and Creekside and a portion of Paradise Intermediate. Cedarwood and Pine Ridge seem to be in good condition at this time due to our ever thankful firefighters and first responders. I have spent quite a bit of time. Has it been 72 hours? I don't even know how long, with the first responders down at the fairground. And I have to tell you, I have never seen so much love and devotion and hard work towards the community as I've seen these last several days. You are proud. You need to be proud to be part of this community. Our next step is, what do we do now? How do we keep 400 people employed? And where do our children go to school? I can promise you that no student will get a truancy letter over this. We are working carefully with the Butte County Office of Education, who has been wonderful to us. We've had numerous meetings. I've been on the phone with the State Department of Education and the state superintendent. We have heard from so many districts. We have started a database, clear to Japan. People are reaching out to our students and their families as to what can they do. We are continuing with our process of meeting and really developing a tiered system on our students. I can't answer at this time where they will go to school or when they will go to school. We've talked about bringing portables in, but just like you, we have to wait till it's safe. Your children will not, and your grandchildren will not be truant at this point. Our state understands. Our seniors, people are so worried about our seniors, rightly so. Will they graduate? How will they get to their AP classes? How will they get the credits they need? It will happen, I promise you. We will graduate a Paradise High School class of 2019 this year. Once again, I don't have a lot of answers, but please know we are working around the clock on behalf of the students and the families of the Ridge, and I'm so proud to be a part of you. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Rasmussen, Communication Manager for Feather River Hospital, or as we call it, Adventist Health Feather River now. Adventist Health's mission is living about hospital operations. We are happy to say that many